Welcome everyone to today's meeting. We will start the meeting in another minute.
Hi, Padam. Hi, Rashmi. Namaskar. Namaskar.
I'm sorry, sir. All of them are on mute compulsorily right now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be.
I know so many old friends. So many old friends.
Yeah.
We'll start now.
I'm sorry, somebody's mic and speaker are on. So, from one of us, can one of us just mute their or mic right now because it's getting.
Rutvik, I'll mute.
Ritik, is it all ready to go?
Yeah, actually, just there's a repeat audio happening. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, friends, I'll start. Good morning to our members and all our online participants. A very warm welcome to this virtual chat with our expert on the world and India post-COVID. I, on behalf of the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society and all of us, welcome our learned speaker for today, Shri Mohandas Pai from Bangalore. Sir, we are fortunate to have you amongst us today and would like to extend our sincere thanks for sparing your time and agreeing to be with us today. I also acknowledge and welcome three of our past presidents, CA Sharik Contractor, Dr. Mayur Nayak, and CA Raman Jokhakar. We also have our young and dynamic managing committee member, Ritvik, who will be the host for today's meeting. I also acknowledge the presence of our close friend of the BCA, CA Padamchand Kincha, from whose offices this meeting has been possible. So, we have had the fortune of listening to you from our platform in the past, but for the benefit of others who are not familiar with the society's activities, I would like to just say a few words about the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. We are in existence in the past 7 decades and are only 6 days younger than the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. We are a public charitable trust and currently our strength is about 9,000 plus CA members. We are the oldest and the largest voluntary organizations of chartered accountants. We are known for the quality of our educational programs and publications. BCAS has been disseminating knowledge to its members and community at large, and its unique selling point has always been its events, be it lecture meetings, seminars, workshop, residential courses, or long duration courses, and its publications. We also send out representations regularly to various regulatory authorities on rules, regulations, and policy matters for the benefit of our professional brothers, our profession, taxpayers, and general public at large. In fact, I'm happy to announce that we had represented to the CBDT and the finance minister that the lockdown period should not be counted for determining the residential status of NRIs, foreign nationals, and this was considered favorably by the finance minister. We, like all other organizations across the globe, have converted this lockdown challenge into an opportunity and changed the way we disseminate knowledge and reach out to our members. Friends, during this lockdown period, we have successfully organized more than 30 online events, reaching to live viewership of about more than 20,000 viewers. And currently, this viewership stands at about 36,000 viewers, resulting in about 75,000 man-hours training of viewership. I would request all of you who are non-members to follow us on our social media platform, which is BCAS Global, and we are present on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I would also urge all of y'all to visit our website to be updated with our events. I would request all of y'all to visit our YouTube channel, which is very, very popular, and where video recordings of our past and current events are available for you to view. Now, coming to today's topic, friends, this pandemic has taken the entire world by storm. Leaders across the world have compared it to an emergency type of world war type of situation. This is a black swan event, not only for the world and more particularly for India also. India currently is trying to manage the curves very delicately. The curve of virus infected people is flattening in some part of the country, but important cities like Bombay and Delhi continue to battle the spread of the virus. Secondly, the economic and India's growth curve will definitely not flatten, but will nosedive if not handled with extreme care. Our economic growth was already slowing down before the outbreak of this pandemic, and now we are faced with this unprecedented problem of lockdown. Where do we go from here? Will life ever be the same again? Are we learning to live with this virus? Will we ever be able to hug or shake hands with our close friends when we meet in the future? Has the government, both the state and the central government, done enough for its people and their well-being and their safety? How will industry and economic growth revive? How will the world political equations change? Will India be able to make up for some lost ground from China? There are many questions in our mind, and to throw more light on these questions and for more 360 degrees views of what is going to come or what is there in our future, we have our expert stats today. Our country, on the topic, our country and the world post-COVID. So I once again thank and welcome Shri Mohandas Pai to be with us. And now I would request our past president, Dr. Mayur Naik, to introduce our speaker and both the moderators. Thank you very much. Mayur Bhai, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning to all of you and welcome to this a very interesting talk by none other than the legendary person, CA Mohandas Pai. I have a pleasure of introducing him. Before that, I must thank him profusely for accepting our invitation and sharing his vast knowledge with our members. Mr. Pai is currently the chairman of the Iron Capital, chairman of Manipal Global Education as an advisor to the board of Manipal Education and Medical Group, a member of the board of Havels India, a member of the board of Essence Property Funds trustee, the trustee manager of Assets India Trust, member of the Manipal University and the Institute of Public Enterprises. He is also chairman of the FICCI Silks Committee. He is president of the All India Management Association, is chairman of the Regulatory and Financial Technology Committee of the SEBI, is founder trustee of the Akshay Patra Foundation, is investment committee member of the SIDBI India Aspiration Fund and the India Fund of Funds, and a member of the board of the NSCI. Previously, he has served as a member of the board of and CFO at Infosys, one of the India's largest software companies. Over a 17-year period, he was voted CFO of the year multiple times. He spearheaded the first listing of an India-registered company on NASDAQ, headed several additional departments such as HR, led business units such as Finacle SM. In 2000, he co-founded the Akshay Patra Foundation, Bangalore, a midday meal program for school children. Today, this program feeds over 1.6 million children each day in 13,500 government schools across 12 Indian states. That's a great contribution, and we are all proud of you, sir, for that. Mohan has also helped launch over 14 different investment vehicles across private equity and venture capital, which have cumulatively invested in over 250 companies with a capital base of $400 billion plus. He was awarded the Padma Shri award by the President of India in 2015 and the Karnataka Rajyotsav award in 2004. He holds a bachelor's degree in commerce as a university rank holder from St. Joseph College of Commerce, Bangalore, a bachelor's degree in law, LLB from Bangalore University, and is also a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India as an All India rank holder. He is based on in Bangalore at present. Friends, with this, I present to you Padma Shri CA Mohandas Pai. Before I request him to address us, I have a pleasure of introducing two of our past presidents who are going to lead the discussion after Mr. Pai has spoken. CA Sharik Contractor, a senior partner in CNK LLP, and he is also a rank holder throughout in his career, a brilliant chartered accountant, a past president of the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, and CA Raman Jokhakar, who is a partner in BD Jokhakar and Company, again a past president and the editor of the BCI Journal. Again, a brilliant chartered accountant and contributing a lot to the profession. I welcome all of you and request Mr. Pai to address us. Thank you very much.
Folks, thank you very much for inviting me to speak to all of you. It is indeed very prestigious to speak to the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. We all grown up reading all your publications when we were articles along with Padam, and always referred to the many, many articles that elucidated on many complex issues to understand. Now, if we had thought about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, that we'll all be under lockdown and we'll be home for 60 days without being able to go out, the whole world will be under lockdown just because of an invisible virus, everybody would laugh at you and say, even people who write science fiction cannot think about it. But that's become the reality. And we are now in a situation where 7.6 billion people are at risk. And because they're at risk and there is no cure for this virus, most people have said that the only way to stop its spread is by social distancing, keep a distance between people, and do not move in crowds. And by that will stop it spreading and hopefully bring down the contagion. So whatever it is, the world is in turmoil today like nothing else. One of the people who introduced said that we are facing a situation like a great war, but this is worse than a great war. In a war, there are some people fighting, the economy is active, everybody is trying to produce more to go to war. Now the whole economy is shut down. And I don't recall ever in human history this kind of a lockdown happening. Even in that great Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, the world was not shut down. Now the world is shut down. The largest economies in the world have been brought to the knees, and we've got to see how things go on. So I'll start by looking at the impact on the world, then on India, and then what we ought to do and how we could do things better. First of all, we need to understand that in the last 100 years, no event has impacted the whole world so deeply as this virus. Because in the First World War, the countries were ruled by empires, there were colonies, and so it was very concentrated. The war took place in Europe. Second World War took place in Europe and in Asia, but India was not affected. There was no war in a territory barring in the east of India at Kohima. And post-war, the world has not been shut down. And even in the great financial crisis, 2008, 2009, America was affected, Europe was affected, Japan was affected. Most other countries were not affected, and the economy didn't stand still. Now the economy has stood still. And it can be seen by the impact in the United States, where there are 33 million people who are unemployed. And this 33 million people is more than the increase in employment since 2008, 2009. And I think it goes back to the Great Depression of 1927 to look at, a greater impact on employment. So all countries are impacted. More than 150 countries are impacted. We don't know when it is going to end. So it's a truly global event, a global event of an unprecedented magnitude. And all countries are trying to fight it out, to find a solution, find a vaccine, etc. Second, it has got a great impact on the global supply chain. Now, we need to understand this. The global supply chain is the creation of the Industrial Revolution. When the Industrial Revolution happened in England, the Western powers built a global supply chain to get raw materials from the colonies, get it to the home country, manufacture in the factories using steam as power, and then send it back to the colonies to sell. So they created a global supply chain consisting of shipping, transportation, oil pipelines, retail, wholesale, banking, etc. And the people who control the global supply chain, people are part of it, are the people who control the economy. So today, the global supply chain all leads to China. China has become the largest exporter, largest importer, a $15 trillion economy, an economy with $4 trillion of dollar surpluses, an economy which impacts or manufactures 24% of global manufacturing. It is truly a giant. The only other country which comes close to such global domination manufacturing was the United States immediately after the Second World War. Now countries are discovering, because of what happened in China, and China shut down in February, March, the world was impacted greatly, and the world's over dependence on China has been exposed. Now, China's domination led to America putting on tariffs under the Trump regime much before the virus hit China. But whatever it is, that is a gradual process. Now, here was a sudden impact where China shut down, and manufacturers all over the world who were working with zero inventory or less inventory were impacted. America discovered that 92% of some medicine came from China. America discovered that they're dependent on India for generic medicine. And the whole world discovered that without China working, they're all going to be impacted. And this created a truly global crisis, because if one country shuts down, the entire chain all over shuts down, and nobody wants to depend. And this will have repercussions. Many countries are now coming out with strategic plans, what they want to bring back from China, irrespective of the cost. They're trying to set up barriers to make sure that they don't depend on one single country, and they want to diversify their sources. And the diversification led to many Chinese companies going and setting up factories in Vietnam. Vietnam has benefited, Southeast Asia has benefited. Some people say that India will benefit. I'll talk about that later. But the Chinese companies are also shifting factories out. Japan has said very clearly that they are going to spend $2 billion to incentivize Japanese companies to diversify away from China. Now, what the repercussions are, what is going to happen, we need to see. But the key is very clear. The world's dependence on China will come down, and China's export-led growth strategy will no longer hold sway. And China has suffered. The economy declined by 6% in the first quarter of this year. A 6% decline, the negative growth in a $15 trillion economy is unbelievably huge. And China, for the future, will have to depend not on exports, but on internal consumption. The second big issue that's happened, apart from the global supply chain, has been the impact on the oil industry. Now, the oil industry was a $6 trillion industry, possibly second largest industry in the world after travel and tourism. Now, the oil industry suffered because of excess production of oil by America. America discovered shale gas and shale oil. What does it mean? When you dig for oil, you dig vertically down, but there are pools of oil and gas trapped in rock formations. So what you do, you dig vertically down and go horizontally from a point and tap into small pools of gas and oil. So America increases production from something like 5 to 6 million barrels a day to 13 million barrels to become the largest producer of oil last year. And when this happened, oil prices became very soft. As it is, America's tariffs on China depressed world trade, and the world consumption is coming down. The world consumes 100 million barrels of oil a day, with OPEC making up 30 million barrels of it. So OPEC is a swing producer, and OPEC is the one that exports the most to countries like India or Japan, which do not have oil. And China has become the second largest consumer of oil. So when China got hit by the virus, Chinese consumption came down and oil prices got hit. As it is, from a $6 trillion economy in the oil, it has come down to $4 trillion. So oil prices started crashing because oil consumption came down. And when oil consumption came down, Saudi Arabia spoke to Russia and said, we have to cut production. Russia refused. And Russia refused rightly because every time OPEC and Russia came together and cut production, America benefited. And America increased production. American shale gas and oil is viable at $45 a barrel. So whenever they cut, America increases production and America becomes dominant. So Russia said that we are not going to cut production. Let the price come down. Let the American shale gas industry get destroyed. And Saudi Arabia, in a bit of anger, said that they're going to increase production and flood the market. So they increased production from 9 million barrels to 11 million barrels a day. And that increased production, oil prices crashed. You saw Brent come down to $15, $16 a barrel. You saw Western Texas crude come down to $10 a barrel. And we saw a negative $37 a barrel for a derivative trade. Because the issue was that derivative trade, if you don't close up on a particular day, you have to take delivery. And in Cushing's field in America, the capacity was almost full up, with 70% getting filled up. And the fear was that by May, all the tanks there will be full because oil consumption has come down. All over, Saudi Arabia and other countries started buying up tankers. So if you see world maps, huge number of tankers all over the place, and oil prices have come down. So oil has gone from being a $4 trillion economy to maybe a $1.5 trillion economy. And consumption has come down by 30 million barrels a day, 30 million barrels a day. Saudi Arabia, under the nudge from President Trump, who was supposed to have threatened Saudi Arabia that if they don't talk to Russia and come to a conclusion about cutting oil production, they'll withdraw their defense umbrella, came to a conclusion to cut 9 million barrels between both of them. And oil is still down in the doldrums, but this has been impacted. For Saudi Arabia, it is very big because their budget is based upon $85 to a barrel to balance. They're running a deficit. They have $450 billion of reserves. Russia's break-even is 45, but Russia's currency will depreciate. And to that extent, I think Russia can still survive and do, because they've been surviving under sanctions for quite some time. But countries like Venezuela, countries like Nigeria, countries like Iraq, where 85% of their budget is financed by oil, are all gone. So we don't know what is going to happen, but what is very clear is for the whole year, consumption may come down by 10 to 15 million barrels a day, and oil prices are expected to be low for this year and for next year. So a very big global industry has been brought to its knees by this kind of a decline in consumption. And the world is finding out that the repercussions of the oil industry coming down are across. They'll be across in many, many areas. And many countries are trying to raise money in the global financial markets. Then other industries like international travel, like tourism, like hospitality are gone. International travel has come to a standstill. Do anyone remember any time since we have been born when you could not travel to any country? Everything was shut. Even if there's a war, planes were still flying in other areas. So international travel is shut. National travel in most countries are shut, because people fear that they travel from place to place, they could carry the virus with them and they'll be in trouble. And then tourism is gone. Hospitality is gone. Nobody's staying in hotels except long stay residents, all parts of the world. And tourism and travel, the largest employer, has been devastated all over. Airports are going empty. And when the virus is conquered, or possibly we have a vaccine or a cure, much of the business may not come back at all. Because ask yourself, will you travel overseas in the next 6 months if the flight's open? Will you travel to some place in India? Do you think you are going to be safe? We don't know. We don't know how we are going to react, and we don't know what is going to happen. So there's a great degree of uncertainty. And we saw the sight of many cruise ships with thousands of people going around the world, not able to land because the whole world was scared. And in one of the cruise ships in Yokohama, you had a lot of people getting infected by the coronavirus. So strange things have happened and industries have been impacted. Now, what is the impact on the financial markets? Because the financial markets are the liquids, are like gold that fuel the whole global markets to run. And in the financial markets, we have seen interest rates come down because central banks around the world, when they see a crisis today, they try to tackle the crisis by improving liquidity. In the global financial crisis, the Federal Reserve increased its balance sheet from $1 trillion to $6 trillion by buying government bonds and corporate bonds. And in that crisis, Japan went on buying government bonds. The EU came out with $1 trillion of stimulus. UK came out with $500 billion of stimulus, etc. And they started printing notes under what is called quantitative easing. So that led to a situation where out of $36 trillion of government bonds globally, $18 trillion were carrying negative rates. I remember a meeting with an eminent Japanese banker, number 2 in a very big Japanese bank, the 3rd or 4th largest in the world. He was telling me, Mohan, we are in deep trouble. I got this depositor who's got nearly $3 million in yen in my account. I go to her and tell her, look, why didn't you invest somewhere and earn some positive? She said, no, I want to keep money in my SB account with you. The problem is I can't pay interest and I have to place excess deposit at the Bank of Japan and I put 100 yen, I get back only 98 or 99. So I lose money every time I take a deposit. And it's so funny for us who pay interest through our nose when you borrow money in India. So in that situation, on top of that, central banks came out with many policies. Now there is a total stimulus around $5.5 to $6 trillion. America is $2.5 trillion. Japan is $1 trillion. EU is come with $1 trillion across all countries. And the UK is come about 360, etc. About $5.6 trillion of stimulus has come. That means they're printing money. The central banks are printing money by giving credit to the national government. They're buying the national government's bonds. And when they buy a bond, they release currency into the market and create liquidity. So that liquidity is sloshing around. And today the Federal Reserve has reduced the rates for bonds with the buy to 0.25%. 10-year money is about 0.8%. 30-year money, I think, is 1.5% or so. These rates are so low, it's almost unheard of. Even in the UK, the rates have come down to 0.25%. Germany has gone back to the glorious days of negative interest rates. The Bank of Japan has said they'll buy unlimited bonds from all over. So they pumped the market with financial thing. And today, this will have an impact on interest rates going forward for the next 2 or 3 years. The Federal Reserve says they're willing to increase the balance sheet from about $4.5 trillion now to $12 trillion. So they are all busy pumping money to bring down interest rates. And when countries come with a stimulus, the Western countries are trying to preserve jobs. In the UK, the government is paying for 10 million people £2,000 a month for the period of the lockdown, 80% of salary up to £2,500 a month. And America has come down with loans to enterprises so they can pay people's salaries and keep them on the payroll at very less rates. And if they don't remove the people from the payroll, the loan will become a grant. So about $600 billion in 2 tranches has already gone into the marketplace. Then they're guaranteeing bonds, giving money to airline companies, giving money to everybody else. And the Federal Reserve has said they'll backstop any fundraising in the market too. I'll talk about India later. But we are seeing this kind of liquidity sloshing around, and the liquidity will remain there. At least for the next 3 to 5 years, interest rates globally are going to be very low. And we could see hot money driven away from the home countries when things settle down, coming to the emerging market. We could see asset bubbles. We could see the stock market going up. And we could see all kinds of things happening because people want some returns, and their risk appetite is expanding because they're not getting returns. Now, what about the global GDP? IMF says that IMF had said before COVID that the world could have grown at 2.5–3% a year. The world GDP is $82 trillion. The United States is 21, Europe is around 20, China is around 15, Japan is around 5, India is around 3, and the rest come from a variety of countries. They said the world could grow at 2.5–3%, and that is very good, led by China, the US. But now the United States saw a fall of about 3.64% in the first quarter. The whole of Europe around the same magnitude in the first quarter up to March. The UK says this year the GDP may shrink by 16% and come back by 15% next year. Europe says the whole GDP may shrink by 7%, come back 6% next year. Japan has shrunk 5% in the first quarter. China has shrunk 6% in the first quarter. And India, I think, we have to wait for the GDP numbers this month end in May for March. And I think we could be negative. We could be negative, or we could be just, maybe 2 or 3% up because of inflation. So there are some issues that are there. So global GDP, my estimate is global GDP for the full year could be down 8 to 10% from 8.2%. Why am I saying this? The United States GDP could shrink by maybe 8–9% because it shrunk by about nearly 4% in the first quarter. But the impact of the COVID is most on April, May, June. April is over with no production. May is going on, and we're seeing they're not yet opening up. June will pass by in a jiffy. So one quarter will be fully negative, nothing will happen. And for the economy to recover, for people to go back to work, etc. United States has got about 33 million people unemployed, and they're all going on dole. And the US will not be able to provide the money for all of them if this continues. So they are in deep trouble. Europe is in deep trouble. So GDP could go down. We could see a huge decline. And please remember, we wouldn't have seen this kind of decline for global GDP since the Second World War. Because after the Second World War, America started growing, and they gave aid to other countries to grow. So I think we have a massive challenge in global GDP all across the world. And in many parts of the world, population is aging. Japan's population is shrinking. European population is aging. Average age in Europe is 45 years. I think Japan is about 47 years. And since the average ages are high, the working age population is low. And when young people are out of job, the people who are supposed to produce, they're not able to pay the pension of the older people. So there'll be government deficits for a long period of time. And so the global growth rate is not good for this year. It's not good for next year. Maybe the year after that, maybe in 23, there could be some upside. Now, what will be the impact in globalization? See, the world has prospered because of globalization. Globalization has led to lower barriers of trade. Globalization has led to barriers coming down. Globalization has led to people able to travel freely. Globalization has led to visas being given. So we are used to taking a flight, going to a country, getting a visa on arrival, and having a visa, traveling, doing our business, importing, exporting, selling services, doing everything else. Now that world is gone. Countries are putting up barriers. First, there is an anti-China sentiment because they don't want the dependence on China. And the Western world thinks that China manufactured the virus. There are many conspiracy theories going. So they want to put up barriers on trade. Second, they want to put up barriers on people going there for employment. So in the United States, President Trump has shot down any people coming there for 60 days. They want to hurt people on H-1B. They want to stop immigrants coming. They say, we got to protect our own people. We got to protect jobs. And the same thing is happening in Europe. And therefore, we are seeing the flow of people going all over will come down. Remittances, which is $500 billion, may come down this year because most of the remittances come from the developed countries and from the Middle East. The Middle East is seeing an economic crisis with lower oil prices. And India, which gets $75 billion of remittances, could see a decline by $25 billion. And because of the decline in remittances, there could be currency crises in many countries. And there could be big budget deficits. And big budget deficit could lead to inflation in some of those countries, even though demand has been very, very suppressed and demand is going to be very down. And all this will lead to a situation where countries will put up barriers. Countries may put up barriers for investment. We've seen Europe put up barriers against China for investment. India has done that. The United States is doing that. And we're seeing all countries do that in a very different manner. And this kind of a barriers coming up is going to have a challenge, primarily because deglobalization happens. We don't know how to deal with it. There could be new energy blocks, political blocks coming. There could be new ways where people all come together, etc. So we got to watch out. So globally, the economy is under stress. The future is very uncertain. Which countries will come out, we don't know. But we don't know that Europe will decline. Japan is on the way to decline because the population decline. China will have to seek new markets, and the Chinese could start dumping. So every country has to be wary. The United States will heal itself. It is known to heal itself. It's got a reserve currency. India is deeply challenged. Africa is deeply challenged because commodity prices are down. Africa gets money. Sub-Saharan Africa gets money by commodity export, and commodity markets are down. Prices are down because China, which is a locomotive of growth, because of exports, has seen a decline, and world consumption is down too. So this is going to be a challenging next 2 or 3 years. Now, what about India? Now, India has done fairly well on the virus. We had a lockdown. Prime Minister took an early decision, and we saw that all round people obeyed, people did everything. But this lockdown showed the fault lies in India's economy. So India's economy has seen a massive decline in this quarter. In April, no personal vehicle was sold. No vehicle was sold. No vehicle was sold. And we sell 2.5 lakh vehicles, cars, personal vehicles a month. And they couldn't sell a single vehicle. And we have seen a banking system decline. We have seen things happen here. So this year, we could see a decline in growth in a very steep way. Let us look at the components of the GDP. Agriculture makes up 15% of GDP. Agriculture will grow at 3.5–4% because the Rabi crop, which is under harvest, is very, very good. It will be a big surplus crop because of good rains last year. The monsoon is expected to be good this year. So the Kharif crop could be good. So 15% of GDP could grow at 3.5–4%. If it goes at 4%, there's 0.6%. 25% of GDP is manufacturing. Industry, it's called industry, construction and manufacturing and mining. So when you look at construction, there's been no construction for the last 1 month. This month is bad too. Most of the construction companies are losing money. The real estate companies are losing money. And then the manufacturing companies have not seen manufacture happen. Steel production is down. All the commodities production is down. They're just going back. For the entire year, we could see a 10% decline in output. So the growth rate could be minus 10%. For 25%, there's minus 2.5%. Services are 60% of GDP. And when you talk about services, there are many components. Trade, retail, and professional services are one component. That will see a decline. Government is another component, and that could stay put. Then we got real estate, not construction, real estate selling, that will be in decline. So if you look at various components of services, which normally grows at 6.5 to 7 to 8% a year, and which is the bedrock of India's growth, services could grow 2 or 3% or even negative. So overall, I think we could grow in the economy in real terms, maybe 1.5%. And I'll talk about inflation or even negative. Now, what about inflation? Well, inflation is very peculiar in India because we have something called the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, in which the weightage is 46% for food. And food largely consists of cereals, which are not going up, and fruits and vegetables, primarily onions. So India's economy where onion prices determine interest rates. If onion prices shoot up, and they always shoot up because in Lasangao, some of the political leaders control the market. They make a corner every year and drive the prices up and drive inflation up. and the RBI gets forced into increasing interest rates. So, but if you look at the current data, food only makes up 30% of an average person's basket. So I think we're using very old indices to calculate. So food prices could be flat or even negative because cereals are in surplus today. Fruits and vegetables could have local market indices and it could happen. Manufactured goods prices could come down because commodity prices are less and there's no pricing power in industry. And as far as services are concerned, services may not go up because people don't have ability to buy and ability to pay. So all over the country this year, people are going to be very cautious about spending money because most of them are hurt. Many of them are not getting their salaries on time. Many of them are seeing the salary cut and they're scared and fearful. So the idea they'll go out and buy new cars, the idea they'll go buy new houses is an idea that needs to be tested. Yes, the Chinese history is that after SARS, when China was shut down, and now in Wuhan, after they opened up, car sales have gone up because most people want personal vehicles. They don't want to go by the metro. They don't want to go by public transport because they have to work with people. So we don't know whether they'll go and buy more cars. We don't know. That could happen. But there is another thing that could change human behavior. And I will talk about that as we go along. So this year, we could have very low growth or even negative growth. And this could have a great impact. What about employment? Well, I think, employment is a matter of deep concern for us. Let me give you data. India has about 1.37 billion people. About 12-13% are above the age of 60. That's 200 million people. So that is about, let's say, 170 million people. So 1.2 billion people are below the age of 60. About 500 million are below the age of 20 because we produce 25 million babies a year for the last 30 years. So you get 700 million people who are above the age of 20 and below the age of 60. Out of that, the working population may be about 500, 550, because many people are at home, women don't work, etc. Now, out of this 550 million, about 45% or 43% are in agriculture. So that is about maybe 250 million. So we got about 300 million people who are working outside agriculture. Out of 300 million people, about 100 million, that is 10 crore, are in formal jobs. Formal jobs mean they get a salary. 2.5 crores are in government, semi-government, paid by the budget, etc. And 8 crores get a monthly payment because the ESI data, the PF data shows that. Out of the 8 crores, 4.5 crores are contract labor because most of them are on contract because big industry doesn't hire people on payroll. They hire contractors. They give you contractors for manufacturing, for services in an office, for security, etc. I think half of them have been laid off quietly. They don't make a noise because, you call the contractor and tell him that don't come from tomorrow, I can't pay a salary. Because I think most people got the payroll for March, they had money, but most people did not make the payroll, or very few did it, barring the big companies, for April. So there's a crisis. Maybe out of 8 crore people, maybe 2 crore, 3 crore, 4 crore may not have a job. And we are seeing this migrant crisis where in the informal economy, so many people who live on the streets, who come from other states, from Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and other places want to go back because, they may earn 10,000-15,000 rupees per month. They live on the footpaths or in slums and they spend much of the money and they send money home. They don't have money to sustain. They have no food. So they want to go back because they feel they'll be safe in the villages and family will take care of them and the villages they can live. So we're seeing an outflow of people from the big cities back to villages and is not very sure whether they're going to come back. Because so many people are saying, if I come to Bombay and earn 15,000, what will I save? I could save 4,000, 5,000, send to my family. I have to live on the payment. I can as well go to my small town or a village, earn 7,000-8,000 rupees. And that could be my saving because, I may have some land, I may do something. So there is going to be a massive outflow of people because of fear, because of a very, rigid society and because of a lack of compassion and lack of ability of the government to help them out. Government has not been able to do. So this year, unemployment may be a problem, social unrest may be a problem, and getting people back to work may be a problem. So we could see more automation. So third thing is we could see negative inflation. Negative inflation because commodity prices are down, food prices may come down because consumption may come down. There is surplus production, etc. And if you see negative inflation and if you see growth being 1% or even negative, the GDP will be hurt. Today, our GDP is 205 lakh crores, $3 trillion. If we grow at 10% nominal, that is 6.5% real plus inflation of 3.5-4%, we would add 20 lakh crore to GDP. This year, we are not going to add the 20 lakh crore to GDP. So what GDP we had in March 2020, if we're able to defend and keep at it, I think it will be a big, big achievement. Then another important thing which has happened globally and in India is the change in habits. Now, the change in habits is dramatic. All of you have been in lockdown for 30 days, 45 days. So how do you live? Well, you order your groceries through the e-commerce and you get delivery at home. Maybe you're doing it earlier. You do your work on the web without talking to people. You do video. You have phone calls, but phone calls are gone. Most people do video. All your work is done at home. Your audits are done at home. Your clients' accounts are signed at home. I don't know how you sign the accounts, maybe electronically or somebody gets it home and signs, but you're doing it. We saw HDFC release results. We saw Infosys release results, TCS, and these are very, very large companies, global operations. They got it audited, they got everything, and it's gone seamlessly. And people are seeing a lot of entertainment. Consumption of data has gone up thanks to Reliance Jio. If Jio was not there for the last 3 years, we'll all be in deep trouble because the cost will be very high and there will not be enough capacity for data. Jio has done a miracle and we're all benefiting. And things have gone so well that we've not felt any hitch. Yes, there are some challenges about bandwidth, but entertainment is coming. And some particular portals which shows particular kind of entertainment has seen a massive, massive increase. We'll not talk about that. It just shows that people's habits have changed. And then what about medicine? Medicine has become telemedicine. Children, I'm told, put on the uniform, sit in front of their a laptop or a PC, and they have school and they're enjoying it. So e-education has come, telemedicine has come, e-health has come, and e-business has come, and e-entertainment has come, and e-commerce has come. Everything has become e, and people have shifted habits. And now the IT companies have 90% of people working from home. They were able to move 4 million people, 40 lakh people from the office to the home in about 2 weeks. It's amazing what they've been able to do. They got approval from the clients, they got cyber security processes, they got the tools and everything else put in place, and they started working. This is a very, very massive shift. And when people's habits change, businesses change. Everything else changes. And when everything else changes, we have to react. The world has become different. Globally too, with the lockdown in the West, which is more digital, people's habits have changed too. We have seen restaurants shut down. We have seen retail malls shut down. We have seen shops shut down, and people are buying with a lot of deliveries. Amazon business has gone up by 25, 30%. And Netflix has seen its subscribers go. OTT has become the norm. Health services have become very different. And we are seeing a massive shift in habits. So India has also seen a shift in habits. And if you look at the population, people above 60, the baby boomers born after the Second World War, are now almost fully digital. Every single person has become digital. And if you look at Gen Z, the younger generation, who is now the oldest to be in college, they're already digital. And Gen X, people who are in leadership position, they are stuck between the old world and the new world. They're also going digital. So everybody is going digital. When India opens up, habits may change. Many people say 25, 30% of people are going to work from home. Right now, 90% are working from home. 25, 30% will permanently work from home. And when they permanently work from home, and then, the habits change, and we're going to see an impact on personal transportation, on traffic in the road, etc. Now, it's quite possible younger people who are staying in smaller places, paying guests, may want to go to office to work because the working environment is much better. Now, people who have got young children will be totally fed up taking care of the children with their wife around, and I don't know how they manage because I don't have children at home, so I don't worry about it. So they're going to have problems. And elder and then senior people have learned how to live with their wives and their husbands at home, and they're quite okay because the wife may be working, the husband may be working, and most people are able to manage to do and make sure the work, the housework also happens. So everybody has learned to adjust. So when we open up, there could be a significant part of the population working from home, and businesses have to use technology, have to go digital to reach the consumers, and the way we work, live is going to change dramatically. What would have taken 5 to 7 years will happen in the next 2 or 3 years, and that is something that we have to do. Now, what about global trade? Now, it's quite possible that much of the manufacturing in China may come to India, and it may come to India for various reasons. Vietnam has got only 65 million people or so, and if China shifts a lot of production, there won't be enough people to produce, so it'll get automated. Then you go to Cambodia and other countries, there is a certain amount of population. So if people come to India, they can tackle the local market, which is very, very huge and growing. after this year, and they could set up production here. So we hear that 1,000 American companies are trying to come away from China and other places. India has to build a supply chain. Our supply chain costs are 14% of GDP. After GST has come down to 12%, with good transportation, it may come down to 10%. We have to be at 6 to 7%. Our ports have got to be efficient. We need trucks to go at 600 kilometers a day. They're doing about 450 after GST. And there are many, many things that we have to adjust. Our railways have to grow at about 45 kilometers. They're doing 25 kilometers before. Now the goods train are running at 65 kilometers. So I think our supply chain has to improve, and trade has to improve. Now, which are the areas that we could see an improvement? One will be electronics, because you'll be surprised that India manufactures 250 million mobile phones, largely Chinese, and because the market is very large here, and we're exporting about 6 to 7 billion worth of mobile phones every year. The value added has gone up to 30% because PCBs are being done here. And with government policy, we could see a shift to tackle the market here and become an export center. Our pharma industry will do very well, because in generic, we are seeing India export $20 billion, and we supply 45% of America's generic medicine. And the world will trust Indian medicine now much more than Chinese medicine. So I think India has an advantage, and we have very good pharma companies with very high quality. India has the second largest number of FDA-approved pharma plants in the world after the United States. So we dominate that industry, and that could come naturally to us. And the third industry which could really improve could be the textile industry and the garment industry, because we see a shift from China, and we are now putting stress on industrial fabrics, and we have been able to manufacture PPE, personal protection equipment, here in Bangalore and other places in a very massive way. And we could see large investment coming in. And the next is the metal sector, steel, aluminum, etc. We already are large producer, second largest in the world. In the auto sector, we are very, very large, and we could have a massive auto exports. But what is required for manufacturing to come from those countries to India is the fact that many of our industrialists set up massive plans for contract manufacturing. If you go to China, much of the industry is owned by the local Chinese. The foreign companies come there, give the design, get it manufactured, put their chapa and the brand, and export it out. And everything else is done by the Chinese. So our industrialists to learn to go to global corporation, primarily the Japanese and the Koreans, and talk to them and see whether we can do the same here, where we put up the investment. For that, state governments should go out and create marketing divisions like the Economic Development Board of Singapore. Indian industry should go out. So far, there has been only talk, not much action. Hopefully, they're doing it. And you'll be surprised to know that Yogi Adityanath has taken the lead, much ahead of anybody else. Tamil Nadu is trying to grow. Karnataka is trying to grow. I hope Maharashtra also does that. So there could be a shift of global industry coming to India. So the world is changed. Habits have changed. The financial markets are going to be awash with liquidity. Global growth will be negative. And many industries are deeply hurt because consumption will be down. And the good news is that the environment has become cleaner. All of you are breathing fresh air. You look out of your window, you'll see blue sky, something you are not seeing. In fact, in Delhi, they're seeing blue sky. They're saying is alpine weather. I don't know how they can say alpine weather, but they're enjoying it because anything better in Delhi is heaven for them. And the Ganga is flowing clearer in Haldwar. You can see the bottom of the Ganga. And in Bangalore, we have a Nalla, which is a river. And the water has actually become fresh because all the chemicals and everything going there has gone. I don't know about a Mithi river, whether the river has become fresher or whatever it is. I think somebody must go and see. But all over the world, people are very surprised that nature has healed itself in 30 days. So all this talk about climate change and climate going away is something that we know now that we can improve. And today, when we go back to normality around the world, people are going to demand that we continue to breathe fresh air, we have blue skies, so environment standards may become more stringent, consumption may come down, and the way of life could change. So there are some positives in the lockdown, even though the pain is very, very high. So for India, this is going to be a bad year. Growth could be very low or maybe negative. Inflation hopefully will be down. The Reserve Bank of India has come down with reducing interest rates, and they pumped money into the market. Today we have 8.4 lakh crores in the reverse repo market, where people are kept deposits with the Reserve Bank of India at 3.5%, and banks are not lending. Huge liquidity is available. Good companies are going to the market, but the spreads are very wide because there is fear. So what about government's reaction? Well, we have seen government in the West come out with stimuluses. The government of India has not yet come with a stimulus for industry. What is required? First, we have to take care of the poor. The government has come with 1.70 lakh of stimulus, where they're giving 500 rupees a month for 3 months to 20 crore women. They're giving free gas for 3 months to 8.5 crore women. They'll be giving rations to about 80 crore people, free rations for 3 months. The construction contractors have got some money, and we have seen ESI, PF withdrawals come in a large way. And so things are there, and many state governments are trying to give money to as many people, but this is not enough. This is for people to keep body and soul together. What we have suggested to government, I wrote an article on it 5 weeks ago, to say that we need a very large SME guarantee fund of 50,000 crores. So the banks can lend 5 lakh crores to SMEs. The problem with the SMEs and most industry today, which you know, is that the entire flow of money is jammed. You're not able to collect your receivables, you're not able to make your payables, and we will not able to have liquidity because the accounts are almost frozen. Now, the State Bank of India chairman is very good. He has said, I'll give 10% more in working capital for everybody. The public sector banks are doing it, but it's not enough because there's a fear of lending. And I think the government gives a guarantee, first 10% loss, lend 20% more to all working capital accounts. And any loss there for MSMEs, we will cover first 10%, we'll guarantee 50,000 crores. We set the ball rolling, and that will put liquidity into the markets in the hands of people so they can pay wages, they can have jobs. And then we also need a very large flow of money back. The data says that the government of India has got, and its agencies have got 3 lakh crore to pay. 1 lakh crore IT refunds are due, GST refunds are due, and the 14% promised to the states under GST as almost a guaranteed return when they all signed on has not been given for the last quarter. So I think government of India has to give that money. We have been telling government to do that. The finance minister has given income tax refund up to 5 lakhs, which is very little, but I think they have to open up. Hopefully they'll do that. Then about 1 lakh crore is there for services which have to be paid for by the National Highway Authority of India, in the Indian Railways, health services, etc. I think that's very, very important. Another 1 lakh crore has to be released as advances to kickstart infrastructure. We need a very large infrastructure spending. We know that John Maynard Keynes has said when the economy gets into a spin, public spending has to go up. Public spending has to go up. So government has to have a large program. They have a program of 3.75 lakh crores there, and they have to do it. And public finances are going to be bad this year. The fiscal deficit for the state and center, which is 6% or 6.5%, may go to 10%. Government deficit may go to 10%. The total tax collection may decline by 2.5, 3 lakh crores. People don't have income to pay taxes. People don't have money to buy. So I think, taxes will come down. All of you know that people are indeed suffering. When taxes come down, government has to borrow. I think the government is working out a plan, but we need a very large economic stimulus, and we need these things to happen. I wrote an article recently about RBI's reserves. RBI has 6,67,000 crores reserve. It had about $430 billion at about 59 rupees to a dollar, when the dollar was 69 rupees, at about 56 rupees to a dollar, when the dollar was 69 rupees as of June 30th, 2019. And, they put it in reserves and classify it under other liabilities. I don't know how you can classify a foreign exchange reserve under other liabilities, because that's the way they do it. They got about $24 billion of gold, about 1,60,000 or 1,70,000 crores of gold reserves out of the 6,67,000 crores. We have suggested that the Reserve Bank of India, even though they mark to market and carry it as a foreign exchange reserve under other liabilities, up the carrying cost of that to 65 rupees and transfer 3 lakh crores to the government. If they transfer 3 lakh crores to the government, in addition to profits, it will come as non-tax revenue. And once it comes as non-tax revenue, the fiscal deficit will not be there. But the RBI has to release currency and print money or buy government bonds to release the currency to give government money. But the budget doesn't have to show a 10-11% fiscal deficit this year. So we need a large stimulus. We need government to borrow money, and government is opening up and having reforms. We've seen labor reforms come in UP, Gujarat, and in Madhya Pradesh. We've seen farmers being freed. So that this year will be a year of reforms, because if you have to kickstart, we have to do things. So I'll just talk for about another 5 minutes about what changes business to do. First, we must understand that all businesses should get into survival mode. What is survival mode? Reduce fixed costs. make sure what money you have lasts a long period of time, because raising money is going to be difficult. And the way to reduce fixed costs for most people is to make sure that you keep your people, don't let go people, because the humanitarian crisis, if you ask people to go, they may not get jobs anywhere. So we have to protect all of people. So cut salaries of top people, bring it down, defer it, and cut down all expenses to reduce your fixed costs. Second, look at the way that you run your businesses, run your profession. How do you react to clients? How do you work with clients? Can you work using technology? Can you improve productivity? So look at your internal processes, look at your reach, look at how you relate to customers, and improve that entire process. Third, relook at your business models. Is a business model working? Is a business doing well? Are you wasting money? How do you change? Because tomorrow the world is going to be digital. Most people will order digitally, and I don't know whether people will go to cinema theaters as much as they did earlier, whether they'll go to restaurants as much as they did, whether they will travel, whether they go to stay big hotels all over the place, whether they'll go for tourism, and whether they'll do many of the things that we're doing for some time till they forget about the virus. Because if they don't get a cure or a thing, like somebody said, we'll have to stay away from people. We have to do namaste and keep a distance of 6 to 7 feet. We can't hug people. I don't know what young people are going to do. They're going to see Anko Mia, whatever it is. They're going to probably run around trees and sing songs. They have to change the way romance is done. Because if you see old movies, when people get close together, people may shrink away from being close together. So we got to be careful. So I think our business models should change. And then the next important thing, what we have to do is we have to have liquidity in the balance sheet. From 94, when I was the CFO of Infosys, we said we should have enough cash in the balance sheet to meet 1 year's expenditure. People used to laugh at us and make fun of us, but we kept the money in the bank. And now we see that a black swan event has created a crisis where people, who have no cash will get into trouble. I read a report in NTRAC which said MSMEs have only 25% of cash for lasting 1 month. 25% of MSCs have enough cash for 1 month, another 25% for 3 months. That 1 month is over in March, April, and the other 25% who are cash for 3 months would have spent 2 months of cash already in March, April. So May will be the time when they will run out of cash. If 50% run out of cash, indeed, we are in deep trouble for employment. So we've got to build up cash reserves and do it. And the same thing for individuals. We have to build up cash reserves for all of us, cut down our expenditure, because we don't know how things are going to come. But the problem is everybody builds up cash reserve, does not spend. What is going to happen to consumption? How will there be economic growth? How will there be employment generation? That's why public spending has to increase. Infrastructure has to increase. And we have to change our habits. And lastly, we have to improve productivity. I think there are two things that make an economy, two things that make a business: capital productivity and labor productivity. For capital productivity, you must reduce cost of capital. Cost of capital is being reduced by reducing the tax rate 25% for corporate. That's very good. Of course, tax rate for higher income has gone to 43%, which is not very good. You should not do that. That's a big mistake, because I think they'll go to the chartered accountants and make sure the diversified source of income, they don't have to come in the 5 crore bracket. I'm sure we all know what to do. And we all, even most of us, we're going to try it, because 43% is usurious. Now, cost of capital has to come down. Cost of debt has to come down. I think borrowing rates will come down, because if inflation is negative, or there's surplus in the market, there are not enough good clients, will come down. Our SBI has already reduced the interest rates. So we're going to see a situation where many industries may not have capex. So we need a large stimulus, and the stimulus should be enough to make sure the next year, 21-22, will be a good year. This year is a bad year. Let us accept this a bad year. Let us do everything this year in terms of investment, in terms of reconfigure business, cutting a cost, to make sure the next year will be a very good year. And if we do everything this year and the government does a bid, next year could be a good year. But I want to end by saying the world has changed. Everything has changed. We are in a new inflection point. We don't know how the world will configure itself, but there are so many things that need to be done. And I think all of us should look at this as an opportunity, and all of us will do very well, because, and for the chartered accountant profession, is a great test to put into practice all that we have learned. As CAs, we are not only tax expert. We know auditing, we know accounting, we know law, we know finance, we know operational research, we know strategy, we know so many things. Now all our clients and everybody will come to us and say, what should we do about the future? How should we reconfigure business? What kind of process run? What kind of technology should we do? And I'm sure we have all the answers. So it will be a challenge for us to use all our faculties, all our learning, and I'm sure we do very well. Thank you very much.
Friends, we had an excellent exposition by Mr. Pai. We are really, thankful to you, sir, for this brilliant exposition on the subject. May I now request our past President Sharik and Raman to ask some questions on behalf of all of us. Thank you. Yes, Sharik. Over to Sharik.
Yes, Mr. Pai, it was an
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant exposition. I think you carried us through a number of areas from what the world is right now, how it's going to impact. I may also add that it was quite a dismal picture, right? We
Sharik?
need to be,
Honest
Hello.
picture.
yeah. But you also made it a little positive by saying that the environment has improved and so on. You asked about the Mithi River. I must tell you, I don't know, I haven't seen the Mithi River, but the flamingos have come to Bombay and they are flocking in
wonderful.
large numbers. So that's a huge positive. So what we are going to do is we're going to ask you a few questions. A lot of the
Yeah.
members have asked questions. We don't have time, so I don't want to sort of summarize what you said. You've said it brilliantly, and I don't think I'll do a good job of it. But the questions are there, a lot of questions that have come from members and some of them from me and Raman. So let me just begin with the first question that I have. One of the things that we keep very often hearing is that this pandemic is a great equalizer, that countries with different geographical borders, rich, poor, are all equally impacted. The common phrase used is that we are in the same boat. But are we really in the same boat? Is that a real correct analogy? Because really, we are all in the same storm, but we are all in different boats. Our resources are different, our circumstances are different, different countries, different people, different businesses. So your strategies may be different. Different people may want to adapt depending on what they have and their circumstances, different approaches. How will we manage that post the COVID crisis, and how will we reconcile and come together as a cohesive response to this particular tragedy?
Well, my view is, as far as health is concerned, like you said, Sharik, everybody in the same boat, same health situation, because we could all be infected by the COVID. Many of us may not come back, and we could be hurt very deeply. Okay, as far as human beings are concerned. But as far as citizens are concerned, we are not in the same boat. Every country is not the same. America can afford to spend $10 trillion and print unlimited amount of money to give subsidies. Japan can do the same. Europe can do to a great extent. India cannot do that. Africa cannot do that. Southeast Asia cannot do that. And many other countries cannot do that. So the poorer countries, the countries outside the OECD, are in a deep economic hole. And for that, they need to be rescued. And that's why we are seeing the IMF chief say that they want to give out $1 trillion in long-term bonds and long-term money to people to keep body and soul together. And most of these countries depend upon the export of the primary commodities to live by and to create jobs. So jobs are going to be low down, jobs are going to shrink, the economies are going to be in negative territory, they won't have enough capital. So it's going to impact a large world. So we need another Marshall Plan for the world, a large-scale Marshall Plan for the world, because for the OECD, they cannot let the rest of the world go down, because they're so interlinked to the rest of the world, right, that if they let the rest of the world go down, they're going to be in deep trouble too, because the world is one single place, and whatever happens outside is going to come to their doorstep too. So I think what you said is perfectly right. Each country has to look after itself, come out with everything else, and it is a call to action for everybody. We have to tighten our belts, we have to work harder, and we have to come back. And when we come back in 2 or 3 years, all countries are not going to rise. When the tide comes in, all boats are not going to be there. Some boats will sink, some will be some will not rise, and the world will change.
Yeah.
Mr. Pai, you have always been very, very, truthful in the sense that you bring so many data points, and we have heard that every time we have heard you, be it at BCA, at Patkar Hall many years back, or at Tycon, or whenever we see your videos, and you have also been very vocal about a lot of things. Now, if you were in the government, for example, and you spoke about certain strategic areas, if you had to give very technical suggestions, or say something that the government, the businesses should do in say next 12 weeks, or say between 3 to 12 months, which means very immediate, and something we could do in next several months, what would it be? For example, say we don't have, we give credits. Say if it's typically for 60 days, people receive after 90 days, 120 days, and there's literally no control or legal support for all this. Are there some things you can, some thoughts on that?
Well, I think my first focus will be on the bottom of the pyramid, because we can't let our people starve. Now, I would expand that program with already done. And there are many things that are done, good work they're done. I'll expand it. Second thing is, like I said, I will give back all the income tax refunds to industry. I'll give back all the GST industry. I will not go to ask questions. I can always get the money back. Whatever is due, whatever the file, I'll give it back. I will give the states the 14% due to them till March of 2020. I'll borrow money and I'll give it to them. Next is, as the government, I'll pay all my dues. I'll ask National Highway to pay all the contractors, the railways to pay everybody, the health authorities to pay everybody, and all goods and services delivered to the government till February or March are going to be paid for, and clear the backlog, because that money is due and we can't hold it up. And if you give people back their own money, they'll be happy. Now imagine a situation where government keeps your money and pays you 6% interest, and they penalize you when you don't pay, and you have to pay 18% or 20% interest or whatever it is. So I will win the goodwill of people to say, I'm standing by you in this time of need. And then I will pump in money for a large scale infrastructure development, roads. I will give money to National Highway to go roads. I'll open up the bond markets. I'll go overseas and borrow money. And I'll ask the railways to expand. And I'll ask the ports to expand and all infrastructure. I'll give money to the cities for the metro to make the metro construction come up, because 2-3 years later, we need the metro. And I'll give money to all the cities to make sure that their infrastructure goes up. Then I'll start a special urbanization program for 5,000 towns. You see, India's big problem is that we have 40% of people in urban areas, 60% living in rural areas. And we have 5,000 small towns. I'll put money in the next 5 years in a large program for the small towns, spend 50 crores each every year for the next 5 years, and create labor-intensive industries there. Incentivize labor-intensive industries. Create whole districts as SEZs for export. And once you're able to do that, people can go there and work, and we will become competitive on the labor scale. So if you have a labor-intensive industries next to Bangalore, you can't be competitive. Next to Bombay, you can't be competitive. You can be competitive if it is in a smaller town, 50 kilometers away from Bombay, because we have a good roads network. And I will start a credit guarantee scheme to make banks lend money. Because today, it is not a problem of solvency, it's a problem of liquidity. If liquidity is not there for the next 2 months, it will become a problem of solvency. You see many companies go insolvent. And I'll make sure financially that all installments of EMI and any installment of loan will be deferred for the next 1 year. Because you need 1 year for people to come back. RBI said 3 months, but I will do it for the next 1 year. They already suspended the IBC for the next 1 year, because there's a crisis of unprecedented magnitude. And where I fault the government is, people want hope. People want hope. And if you don't give them hope by acting fast, saying we're going to do this, communicate to them, they'll give up hope. And people give up hope and say, this is my faith, this is what I'm going to do, you're going to be in trouble, and there's no going back. Right now, I would like a Prime Minister and Finance Minister to give us hope and say exactly what they're going to do for us for a period of time. The government has said that they're going to come with a big bang, that is fine. They can come with smaller stimulus, but come with something to give us hope. Once you give us hope, everybody will be together. Right now, that hope is fading.
Yeah, I think you're completely right that, we need to give people more hope, put more money in the pockets of people. You talked about the Keynesian model, and there is so much that the government can do. My question to you really is that you mentioned that America has put in so much money into the pockets of the industry so that they can pay the labor. While in India, we've had this clarification coming up to say that all industries or all employers must pay full wages to their workers. Again, I mentioned earlier, we are not in the same boat. Different people may have different circumstances. How can that be implemented? Is it good to have such an advisory come out? How will people implement that? And then you have the other one, that various states have actually rolled back the labor laws. So indirectly, you may say that the Payment of Wages Act does not apply to a particular person. So there is a bit of a contradiction there. How does the government put money, and can, without putting that money, compel industries to say that you must pay your employers without any cut?
No, I think the government has done wrong because it's a public emergency. In a public emergency, when you dictate to people to not to work, not to do this, you have to take the responsibility. That's why the government is there. And the government has done wrong by compelling people to pay. The Prime Minister appeals to everybody to say, please pay, please take care of people. That's fine. Many people will take care. But you can't send them a threatening notice. In Telangana, they're sending you a notice. In Bangalore, the Labour Commissioner stood up and said, I'm going to issue notice to everybody. You can complain. And then they have to take it back because people are going to rebel. You can't do it. It's illegal. I don't think the government can issue that kind of a advice to everybody. So they took it back. And the idea that you reopen your factory, if somebody gets sick, I'm going to shut it down and arrest. That is stupid. How can you do that? I mean, I don't know why people in certain parts of the government are so very insensitive, uncaring, and showing the typical colonial attitude of beating people with a danda. I don't think it's required. I think they have to be much more sensitive. That's why we need a stimulus of at least 10 lakh crores. 10 lakh crores of stimulus to pump money, all the things. Now look, Sharik, all of us know the solution. Why can't the government talk to some of us and come with it and put it forward? Because if they don't do it today, they're going to do it tomorrow.
Right.
And if you do it later, the costs are going to be very high.
Completely agree. Raman, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, one of the other questions that we had that we all focus a lot on GDP, and GDP is basically the criteria as it appears. And now we see the fastest growing economy suddenly swing, downward, and it's in a spiral. Now, first of all, people like us feel as taxpayers that I'm living in this fastest growing economy. If I needed a bed tomorrow, perhaps there won't be a hospital bed. Probably same for you or everyone in the middle class after paying so much taxes. Do we need something to fix this measure of GDP where you have some kind of a negative marking? We are comparable to Afghanistan in terms of number of beds, for example. I looked up, so there are so many other measures where which actually drags down, and this is a time where it all comes up and shows its face that we are really sort of far from where we need to be.
Raman, you have made a very important point. And the point is, we must create much more investment in all the things that bring meaning to life. For example, improve our healthcare, improve the quality of education by opening up society. Now, why is there an antipathy to the private sector in healthcare? When they came out with this testing, they only had government laboratories. You can't have 50 laboratories for the whole country. You need 1,000. And there are enough private sector doing it. Why is the distrust of the private sector? We are all taxpayers. This country belongs to us. This country does not belong to Delhi. It does not belong to the bureaucrats. It belongs to us. So open it up, put up the standards, and let everybody do it. For example, hospitals. We can create 5 lakh beds in the next 5-7 years if the private sector comes in because you've got the insurance program to pay for it. So government should relook at what they have to do, go only where the government cannot do it, and ask the private sector and citizens and build a society based on trust. Our society is not based on trust. When you see the police beating up people with lathis, that is police brutality. Yes, people may not obey the law, but you can't beat them up. You can't beat them up. They're walking in the street to catch and hit a lathi. How can you do that? That is police brutality. The police have to be considerate. They have to enforce the law, but they have to be humane. You can't beat people like that, and we all put thalis. So I think the entire attitude of the state should change. The state should keep up its colonial control mindset and become much more democratic, and the time has come for change. But I would say our political leaders have to take the first step. The problem is the political leaders are not having proper oversight of the bureaucrats. The political leaders should engage with us, the civil society, take our advice, and then work on the basis, because the bureaucracy only give them something they like to keep. So I think it's very important we change the way of governance. It also means that all of us who are educated, who are well-off, or society leaders have to interact more with the government and talk to them and change the way. Look at tax terrorism. In the last 5 years, we have seen a doubling of tax disputes from 4 lakh crores to 9 lakh crores. And they promised to stop tax terrorism. Look at what is happening. They're extorting money. Tax collection has become like tax extortion, right? You go to an assessing officer, he will double the tax and say, look, I got a target, I got to reach it. Then you say you're doing wrong, you're illegal. He said, no, I know about it. You win in appeal. And appeals never happen. We got a broken down justice system. To get a tax dispute done by the Supreme Court takes 15 years. 15 years. And the assessing officer will say, okay, pay me 20%, I'll create a dispute. I know it is wrong. You pay me, I have to meet my target. Then you go and appeal 15 years. So I think we have to redo the way business is done, the state is done.
Sorry to interrupt here. Just that there is probably disturbance which is coming to the participants. Any one of you, including you, Mr. Pai, and the moderators, are you facing any disturbance in the audio?
Yes, I'm facing disturbance in the audio. There is that buzz. That buzz is there in the audio.
Okay, sir, is it okay if you can shut off your video and restart your video and audio both? We'll just experiment that.
Now it is gone.
Because I'm not able to.
Ritvik, it is gone right now.
Everyone else is on mute.
No,
okay.
Ritvik, it is not there right now. So I think let's continue for a while and then see if it again happens. Okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, sir. Sorry to disturb you. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so Mr. Pai, I think again, very important points that state needs to be transparent. It needs to be humane. It needs to bring hope. We understand all that. But these are extraordinary times. And at these times, most states in the world have taken extraordinary powers upon themselves. These powers perhaps are necessary at these times, but they should be temporary. And these powers tend to sometimes infringe upon your liberty, your privacy, and so on. The Disaster Management Act, of course, has given the government of India also substantial powers. It also allows you to do a lot of surveillance on the citizen. My question to you is, having said all that, how do we move forward? How do we ensure that there are checks and balances there? And how do we, for most important, ensure that once this emergency is gone, we come back to a stage where these powers are rolled back? Because governments that take power are very, very reluctant to give it back again.
No, I agree with you totally. I agree with you totally that the government has taken extraordinary powers because of this emergency. And there's a provision in the constitution for that. So what we should do is we should give a feedback to the government. We should keep an alert eye, and we should make sure liberties are not taken away, and they are temporarily, government may assume powers. When things start normalizing, we should have an oversight and go back and give feedback and say, please remove this. For example, right now, there was an overwhelming opposition to this rule that will arrest the CEO if in case one person becomes sick, right? So they had to withdraw it. And like this, we must give feedback. We must stand up. We must be honest. And we must be straight to the government. And I think government will appreciate it so long we are not ideological, so long we are not political. And that means people like you, the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, in your areas of expertise, people like all of you, leaders of society, have to talk. And we have to be articulate. And we have to give feedback. And if we're able to do that, for a period of time, I'm sure it'll come back. And what you say is right. Government always tries to push the boundaries and take away more and more powers from us. And we have to be vigilant. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
The next question is, about globalization. And you spoke a little bit about, how people will look at China here on. But, capitalization's mantra for all these years has been globalization, and you spoke a lot about it. But on one side, we have this totalitarian, sort of opaque, manipulative regime. And we have on the other side, the consumer side, we have this whole free society, as we can call it, if we can say so, Now, what lies between this set of people, the free societies, which have, what I mean, and China, and how would they interact going ahead?
Well, Raman, there are only two emotions that move the economies: fear and greed. Right now, there's fear because of China. Greed will come back because China gives you all the goodies at low price, and you can make a lot of money. And between the totalitarian regime and the free society, greed overtakes what other societies do, right? But the problem also is each country is sovereign. It has a right to its economy, right to do many things. We want to create a world built on rules and regulation, but whose rules and regulation? Who is to decide? So a global fora should improve. It takes time. It takes time. You know the horrors of the industrial society in England. You know the horrors of what happened in the United States in the late 19th century, how they dealt with the Native Americans and everything else. You know all these things that are happening, the criminal exploitation and the capitalism. So you need to temper that with society. So it's going to take time. But today, what is important is when the West moved to China, they never thought that there will be a risk of China shutting down. That risk is come. They never thought China will show its sword as they did in the South China Sea. But there is a fear. So there is an economic fear, there's a political fear, and that will change the world because this has exposed the fault lines. Or the fault lines were there, but people did not see because of greed. Now with the fear being more than the greed for some time, hopefully it will change. But I'm not hopeful because money does not know any ideology. Money knows no color, money knows no ideology. And sadly, money is what moves economies. The key thing is, what do we as Indians do, right? So let us look after ourselves. Let us become a $10 trillion economy by 2030. Let us put all our expertise to be more productive. And if we do that, we'll have a place in the sun.
Thank you.
Right. I know. I think that's an interesting answer. But you mentioned about, the capitalism, exploitation and stuff like that. So my question is, there has been a huge income disparity in this country and in the world. And it is coming to forefront right now. Today, one of our important workers are the sanitation workers, the BMC workers. But look at the conditions in which they live. Even our staff, some of our help staff and our admin staff and all that live in very poor condition because they are not paid enough. And I would almost say that in a way, they subsidize our lifestyles because you pay them less and you earn more. Is this a opportunity to get that balance right in some manner and see that, it is important, everybody is interconnected. If you leave people in bad conditions, it's going to hit back upon you. And we need to bring about some kind of parity in the way we live.
Sharik, I think you have made a very important point, which I think, we have to introspect. Now, there are 3 or 4 ways of doing this, Sharik. All of us, leaders of society who are done very well, should examine how we treat people depend on us. Our housemates, our drivers, the staff in our office, are we paying them enough? Are we paying them enough to keep body and soul together, take care of the families, educate the children? Are we doing enough? Obviously, so many of us are not doing enough because we just say, okay, I'll pay you this money, you come or go, and there are not people outside the door to come in. So we must all introspect and try to increase and do many things. Second, the way the world has done it is by increasing minimum wages all over. And I think we must look at the minimum wages and make sure that is a living wage in many people. Now, people fear if the minimum wages are increased, then quite possibly employment will come down. It is true, because there's only so much that can be done. But the key thing is the minimum wages are increased and we pay more, all of us will demand better productivity. We will be very cautious about hiring. We are paying more and we'll demand productivity. And I think productivity has to come in because the only way to earn more money is to be more productive. I think that will be very important. That's the second thing. And the third thing, which is very important, is we must bring in health and safety standards. And we must enforce health and safety standards. Now look at a sanitation worker. In Chennai, in many places, workers without any protection go into these manholes and they die. They still die. How can it happen in a civilized society? Why are people so quiet? Now we must make sure the municipal commissioner, if he does not implement that, will be arrested. And he'll be held accountable because the cleaning a manhole is not a sovereign task. Those of you who read law know that when a government servant executes a sovereign task, he is not accountable because the act of a sovereign. But cleaning a manhole is not a sovereign task. It's a municipal task. And if you let somebody go into a manhole and he dies, then without health and safety. So health and safety standards have to be implemented all across the place. And today, please remember, what are the health and safety standards? If you go to a building, you look at thermal imaging to make sure that you're not having fever. Then you'll go and make sure that your hands are all sanitized, correct? And you'll make sure that you'll have social distancing. Why are you doing this? Because you're scared of infection. Now, we must have health and safety standards. And look at Japan. Japan has very good health and safety standards. The Western societies have built health and safety standards. And by that, they improve the productivity of people and they're taking care of people. And next is, we must improve the concern for human life. That is coming in. Today, the fact that we had a lockdown and Prime Minister, came out and spoke and made sure, and we're suffering this pain, showed that we respect life. But even then, despite that, respecting life, respecting everybody's, ability to do that, so many of our people are not able to live properly because there are 8 to 10 to a room. So public housing has to be #1 priority for people. We have to make sure. But Sharik, for that purpose, we need the 5,000 small towns to improve. Right. Now, why do people have to come and work in Dharavi and do the cottage industry? Why can't they live 50 kilometers away where they have all the facilities, better housing, and they have labor-intensive industries, and come to Bombay to walk on chowpatty and eat the chow chow or whatever it is, and walk up and down once a week, or come to a cinema theater and look at Shah Rukh Khan or whatever it is, satisfy yourself. You don't have to work in Dharavi. You can work 50 kilometers away. Why don't we build those 5,000 small towns? Look at what Singapore did. Singapore, after they became free, put in public housing. 85% of Singaporeans have public housing. It's a clean, neat city, because like Deepak Parekh keeps saying, the moment you have a house, you have a commitment to society. You have a stake in society. When you don't have a house, you do that. So we must stop this migration by building up smaller cities. Very important, because the big cities are expensive, and build up roads and others way to reach the big cities and consumer markets. And second, we must make sure that we invest adequately in housing. Now, Modi has built 2.5, 3 crore houses at the right path. Maybe we should build another 5 crore houses in the next 10 years. Is there a shortage of money? There's no shortage of money. There is no shortage of money for India. We can all raise capital. The world is surplus with money. We can get global capital. Our foreign debt is only for industry and for government is only $500 billion on a $3 trillion economy. And government debt is only some $80 billion. It's very low. So we can do a lot of things. It requires good leadership. But I would say, Sharik, you people who are leaders of society must propose all this, must push. Now, for the last 30 years, so many of us have been so focused on our own professions. They've been so focused on what we are doing, building up economic might. Now we must all promise to each other, we'll spend 20% of our time building up society, contributing to the greater public cause. Because for us in our life, what is important? We have to make India good. We have done good by ourselves. We have prospered. Now we must make our country good. We must make every Indian have all the necessities of life. And that should be your aim for the next 20 years. Because the COVID has taught us one important thing, Sharik. All of us are mortal. You can't escape.
Yeah,
all of us are mortal.
Yeah.
And you can't shut yourself in your house and think that the air is not going to come and do something to you. So let us change our attitude.
That's excellent. We had one more question about, technology, where, it has given us a huge amount of democratization and also made us almost gods. We are, say, omnipresent today. Now, on the other side, we have, these tech giants which have been growing, and, as geo spreads, and we have heard some more news. Are they, they are almost into our minds and slowly getting into the minds of Indian society as well. They are already part of many aspects of our life. So, going ahead, and, COVID is really bringing this question about technology even more as we get pushed closer to, adopting technologies. Do you feel that, in the end, or, in the coming days, we will be more of sovereign individuals, like the book read several decades ago, or we will be, sort of slaves with robots and AI and whatnot coming in, that, humans are just slaves. You get this money, you spend on it, and that's about it. You watch your movie, you eat your food, and, that's the end of it. Some thoughts from you.
Raman, very good point. I'm very happy you're raising this issue. My view is the biggest danger to human society globally is the rise of these digital monopolies. Google is a monopoly. Google has all your data. It knows more about you than anybody else. Google can control your mind. How does it control your mind? When you go and search, Google sends you what it wants you to see, not what you want to see. And Google knows exactly where you are, what you are. And the United States NSA has access to the data. So they can snoop because they're headquartered in America. And being headquartered in America, they can subpoena and get all the data without you knowing about it. So we are the mercy of a foreign government. We are the mercy of a digital giant. And Facebook has got so much of data. They worked with Cambridge Analytica to manipulate people's mind by sending fake messages to force them to vote in a particular way. You can see the movie, The Big Hack. I think some of you should see it to understand the impact. So the biggest danger for human society is the rise of digital monopolies. Now in the United States, they brought in the Sherman law, antitrust law, to break up the oil monopolies, and they broke up the telecom monopolies, etc. But they've been very soft on Microsoft and other countries. Now the EU has woken up. EU is fined Google because they're suppressing the MSMEs. EU has fined Microsoft. America has to start working. And this concern about our privacy, our rights being taken away, all of us being victims of these global monopolies is very real. And that's why I think in India, we must ask government to bring in a privacy law, a data residency law, a data transfer law, etc. The law is there. I would strongly suggest the BCA under Sharik and you to study that, because you're asking this question, and come out and become a voice to protect the liberties of all the people. Now, many leftists in Delhi who are, who are very, very difficult people and who always try to point the finger at the state don't understand. If we don't have a law where data is here, if we don't have a law which protects us, if we don't have a law which gives a right to government to protect us, nobody will protect us. Today, if Google does something to you, what will you do? Fight in the United States? You will never win the case. Now, if we have a law, the data is here, we can go to the courts, Supreme Court will protect us. The government of India will protect us. The government of India fails, our own national government, we can go to the Supreme Court. The courts are there. So we need this kind of a data nationalism to come here, because we are a large country. Now, I was talking to somebody important in Singapore. They're saying, no, how can every country have data centers? How did every country do that? I said, I agree with you. So we need an international agreement. That's why I wrote an article to say, we need a universal declaration of digital rights. 1947, we had a universal declaration of human rights. Now we need a universal declaration of digital rights, which will make sure that every human being in the world, by an international agreement, has access to the digital rights, and the digital rights are protected. Because everything has become digital. All of us have become pieces of data. All of us have become pieces of data. And the data can be manipulated, data can be used, and the data can be done to control you. And that's why I think it's very important. So I think that is it. So maybe the BCA under Sharika, you or somebody who are concerned about this, should look at the data laws, data regulations, and come out and give your opinion and become opinion makers. I totally agree with you. This is the frontier we have to cross now.
Thank you.
So, Mayur, do we have time to continue, or should we wind up? Or at least I can ask you at least one question. Sorry?
I got time.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I actually want to ask you this question, and I think a lot of people would like to know that environment was a huge important thing for mankind before this crisis hit us, and I think it continues to remain so. How will we react to that? Because already you have all these auto industries asking that emission standards should be relaxed for us, because we are already completely down and we could be in greater difficulty. So give us some relaxation. A lot of other industries are also going to come about saying that, give us relaxation in terms of environmental standards and stuff like that, because we cannot afford right now. We need to get back on our feet first. This is a conflict. How do we manage that conflict? Do we allow temporary relief? Because I guess a lot of people believe that the virus itself is partly to do with how we have treated the environment. So it's a complete dilemma as to now to revive the economy. Do we relax the standard? Because there's a lot of clamoring for that.
Sharik, I will look at it very differently. Now, why is the environment a concern? Because we are consuming more energy and more carbon is being released in the atmosphere to various sources. Now, as consumers, we can promise ourselves we'll consume 20% less energy. Now, in Infosys for the last 7-8 years, before I left in 2011, we had an interesting experiment. How do we cut down per capita energy consumption by 50%? 50%. We had 2 lakh people. What did we do? One, we improved practices like turning off the lights, very silly, turning off the PC before we go home, and making sure set the right temperature for the AC at 24 degrees, etc. That cut down the consumption by about 20%. Immediately, good practices. Second, what we did, we looked at all equipment more than 5 years, 7 years, because we used to write off in 5 years and replace all the equipment. And new equipment is 30 to 40% more energy efficient than old equipment. Look at the ACs in your office. If the ACs in your office are more than 5-6 years old, and you replace them, your energy bill will come down by 30-40%, because today's equipments are very, very efficient. So reduce that. That reduced by another about 20-30%. And then all new buildings, we have sun path analysis, make sure the heat doesn't come in. We use natural lighting, and we made sure that we used a better cooling. Now, we found a very interesting thing. The American AC standard, ASHRAE, says we need 1 ton of AC for 250 square feet. And everybody blindly follows that. We questioned a consultant to say, what is it based on? He said it is based on the heat generated by the human being who is going to be there and the residual heat from outside. Okay, the heat from outside, you control it by having a sun path analysis. Then we said, look, a typical American will be 70, 75 kgs, woman will be 60 kgs. Most of them are meat eaters. They emit greater heat and the body mass is bigger. An Indian is about 65 kgs male, 55 kgs female. An Indian is about 5 feet 6, 5 feet 7. Female is 5 feet 2, 5 feet 3. They're big, beefy. Why don't you, because the human surface area is less, why don't you cut it down? And that is true. It is based upon the human mass. We cut it down, and now Infi is getting 1 ton of AC for 750 square feet. 750 square feet, because you cut down the energy consumption. And by doing all this, they reduce energy consumption from 295 units per person month to 145 units per person month.
Right.
Now, why can't we all do that? All of us can promise to reduce our own energy consumption to make sure we reduce less. We can easily cut down 20%. The next thing what you must do, very importantly, and government has done that, right now, you got Bharat 6 fuel from 1st April 2020. That will reduce the nitrogen oxide by the fuel by 25-30%. So we must have a program called Cash for Clunkers, which was done by the Obama administration, where you pay people to take old vehicles off the road. All vehicles lorries more than 15 years should be taken off the road. We should pay them a subsidy to buy. Old cars should be taken off the road. Yes, you can keep it for legacy sake and show off, but you must do all that. Get rid of all this old equipment with the guzzlers. Next important point, we got 205,000 megawatts of coal-based power. Now, coal-based power can be used in combined cycle plants. The typical coal plants uses only 25% energy in coal, and if you have combined cycle, high pressure, 660 megawatt plants, the energy efficiency goes up to 450. Let's have a massive program of taking away the old plants more than 20 years and bringing in new technology to increase energy efficiency. So by increasing energy efficiency, we can take away half the problems of a large scale carbon capture. Yes, and working from home, making sure that traffic is not there and improving our practices can take off. So I think this year is a great experiment for us to do it. And we tell government, don't dilute any standards because the standards are already high. Maybe if you have to do something, incentivize people by taking away old equipment, replacing equipment, which will have a bigger impact than diluting any standards.
That's awesome. We had one question coming about accountants, and we thought it's slightly out of the COVID area or its impact, but it's linked to technology. We see technology sort of taking over a lot of areas. And one of the top 10 areas that have come into reports is that, accountants are very susceptible to sort of annihilation, if we can say so. So we thought, we could take some of your guidance that, where, how do we not end up being ghosts, if we can say so?
Well, I think, Raman, that's a good point. We end up not being ghosts by expanding the quantum of services that we give our people. Yes, accounting is becoming automated, but the application of mind to that automated accounting is becoming more important. How do you make checks and balances? How do you do internal controls? How do you do audits in a very proper manner is becoming much more difficult. So we have to embrace technology to do all that. The quantum of total work may come down, but the quantum of oversight will go up. There has been many claims of under auditing, under accounting all over. Now they can be much, much better. Second, we must learn data analytics and use of big data because it should come naturally to us as professionals to use in our work. And the third thing which we must do, we must use our understanding of finance to look at the impact on the balance sheet and advise clients in advisory what they need to do to improve their financial standing and to make sure that things are much, much better and improve the quality of audit. And then, you see, there is an old story about a lion chasing 5 people, okay? And 5 people started running. Now, the one who ran further than the other 4 was the one who survived, right? So it's not that, you look around the world, we are good accountants. We have a very rigorous examination process. We undergo this, articleship, whatever people may call it. It is very rigorous, right? So we are good people. Why don't we train all chartered accountants and IFRS? Why don't we train them on the use of technology? And then tell them, why don't you go work globally? Why don't you all big chartered accountant firms, not the big 4, they already do it, talk to the counterparts from the world and start providing services remotely. Now we have learned, staying at home in India, we can do audits. So we can do audits from America. We can do audits from UK. We can do audits from everywhere else. The costs are very high there. And we can provide services. We can do that. Why don't we look at becoming much more global? Why don't you create backends for accounting, maintaining accounts, and doing that? KPOs do it. The KPOs do it. Why can't we as professionals do that in a much more significant manner? And if we're able to do all this, we can do much better. If we are able to do 3 times the work at 1.5 times the cost to companies, we'll certainly succeed. Everybody will love us. So I think we have to change the way we work, change the way we do things, and use technology to become more efficient, become more productive, and become more global.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, Sharik.
Sharik, we lost you.
I think Sharik has lost the
Sharik
connection.
bhai, sorry, I think his video has got paused. Raman bhai, can you continue in the time being?
Yeah, I have, one more question that has come is that, valuations in the stock market is not really reflecting the economy these days, be it in Dow Jones or, be it in India. And in probably part of it is liquidity. But, what could this imbalance be? Meaning it's not mirroring what's happening.
The market falls on a rumor. I'm sorry. The market falls in a rumor and rises on a fact, right? Now, the market has already discounted the COVID to a great extent. So it fell down when the COVID started. So possibly the emotions of people and the fear went off in the fall. Now people have come to realize, yes, the COVID is there, the reality, many firms are going to be there, but some firms will do well, and money is chasing. Second important thing, because the massive expansion in liquidity, the return expectations have come down. Now on fixed income in the West, what are bonds getting you? What are G-Secs getting you? Peanuts, nothing there, right? So money is flowing out of G-Secs and fixed income into equities, and the sheer flow of money. And the third, like you said, is the sheer flow of liquidity, and people are now smacking the lips to see what are they going to do with the money. So I think all these factors are going ahead and do it. But the key thing, what we have to do, don't try to understand the market movement, go along with the market. Why fight the market? If you have to fight the market, you got to be very, very courageous. And, it is something, for most of us, we can't do that. We don't have the money or the thing. Well, go with the market and try to see what are strong fundamentals and what do you do and decide for yourself.
There was one question. Sharik, are you there?
He has to cut off and lock in. Yeah.
I think he's still up there.
Yeah, he has joined back, but
we
somehow
had one
still...
question about, how public money turns into private profit all the time. And then when it comes to a time like this, everyone wants help from the government. And some statistics said that, 96% of free cash flows went into buybacks in, say, US airline companies, $10 billion and whatever. Now, wage earners never get more money. The investors end up with all these big bucks. And, when it comes to times like this, everyone puts their hands up and say, okay, can you, help us, bail us out? Same happened with banks, say, in 2008, 9. And, in 10, they got millions of dollars as bonuses and so on. What's the way out that all this public money, especially, for people who are paying taxes, who are professionals, etc., we feel that, all this money goes into either corporation taxes, say, equal to your interest cost, or then there are schemes, bailout, and, I don't know whether we get the bang for the buck. What should be done to, stay out of this?
Raman, democracy is a system of competitive lobbies. Democracy is a system of competitive lobbies. So lobby the strongest always wins. So form your own lobby, become opinion makers, because ultimately human beings vote. Corporations don't vote. Yes, money has a sway, but human beings vote. And if you mobilize enough public opinion, you'll get what you want. So I think, a baby cries to get fed, right? A baby doesn't cry, it may not get fed. So I think it's very important for us to create our own strong public opinion and lobby in a democracy to get a voice heard. That's the only solution. Know the solution.
I think we'll take one or two more questions. You have been talking for quite some time. And there was one question about freelancer industry. And they said, in next 3 years, this freelancing industry, and, people like Naval, Ravikant, etc., they've been speaking, I would just wake up one day and I'll have these 3 jobs and I could choose from my home. Here is the job I could take. What's your view on that? Will this actually be a reality where we will have, a big freelance industry?
No, I think you're right. The gig economy will expand dramatically. It'll expand dramatically for certain sections because of many reasons. One, corporations will not want to add on payroll. They don't want to add headcount.
Right.
And two, corporations know the specialized work that they do is not required regularly. It can be done sporadically. So they can always call on people, pay them more money for a limited period of time. I mean, when you got AI work, you can call somebody and pay them 1.5 times what they earn in a month and do work in 2 months and not hire them for the rest of the year. They could go somewhere. So I think it's like, going for tax advice to somebody, right? You don't need to have a tax person on your payroll all the time, but you can always go to an advisor and get money. And so there'll be a compulsion from the corporate, and there'll be a change of the way it is work. And third, I think a lot more work will be outsourced. A lot more work will be outsourced by corporations because they'll decide this is the specialized work. We don't have to do it. What we have to do is build a brand, build a great product, get it manufactured by somebody, sold by somebody, accounted by somebody, done by somebody. We have oversight and we can do well because we keep all our things flexible. We have to change your economic model and lower your fixed costs. And fourth, for many, many individuals who are secure, who are fairly secure, they can all say, I don't want to work. I'll work when I want. And, I've got a platform because no technology is available to connect those who want to give work with those who can do the work. And I'm going to work. I'm going to tie up with somebody and I'm going to work. So there's going to be a massive shift towards that. But the downside is there'll be no social security. For example, Uber and Ola have demonstrated so many people drive cars. There is no social security. And if things go bad, you can be laid off. You have no protection. So there's a good and the bad. So it's not for everybody. If for certain people who have the ability to work on their own time, who've got enough money security, financial security, etc. So I think, but the gig economy will certainly expand in a massive way.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah, sorry, I was thrown out for a while, but I'm back here. So I missed a little bit of it. But, before I was thrown out, I heard you mention that the world needs to come together in a lot of ways because we are facing problems like environment, which needs to be solved globally. You talked about technology problems where you need to have solutions which are global in their place. And COVID itself has shown that, it's not a problem that any one country can solve. You have to come together. But it is this time that we are actually facing countries which are becoming very, very strongly, may I call it nationalistic, almost chauvinist nationalism kind of thing. Isn't it time for us to look at ourselves as global citizens first? Of course, nationalism is important, but isn't it important that we have to find global solutions to our problems?
Sharik, my personal view is globalization went far ahead of need. So there's a reaction. And globalization will retreat before coming back at a new normal. And what the new normal is, we have to think about it. Please remember, this globalization is a result of the post-war economic order. And the post-war economic order does not recognize the reality of today's economic condition. Post-war, the big five were dominating the world. Now the big five no longer dominate the world. Only one dominates the world. France doesn't dominate the world. UK doesn't dominate the world. Russia doesn't dominate the world. It is China and America, correct? And India is coming up. So you have to recognize the post-war reality in terms of who are the big players, what has to be done. Yes, the West still has the economic power. They still have the majority of savings. Now the emerging markets are coming up. By 2025, the emerging markets will have a higher GDP in total than the OECD. So I think we are in the midst of this flux. So globalization went far ahead of the need. It hurt a lot of people, especially the West. Now they're trying to pull back. And again, it'll open up for a period of time because they will realize their interdependence. So I think in the next 2, 3, 4 years, we will come back to somewhere else. I think, we'll open up a little bit more over a period of time. So, this is a phase that goes up and down to make sure that the global order meets the global reality.
There was this one question about currency, and it's to piggyback on what you just said. In Rashmin Bhai's words, there has been this huge dollarization. If you look at it, everything is pegged to the dollar, and dollar kind of manipulates all of us and economies and whatever. It's a way to control us. And now we see that, China is trying to sort of put their currency into it. They are bringing some kind of e-currency into do you see any culmination of this whole war, if we can say so, into a global currency or some kind of a Bitcoin type electronic currency?
Raman, what is currency? Currency is a store of value, is a unit of measurement, unit of accounting, and a medium of exchange. Correct? And what does the currency say? Currency says, I promise to pay the bearer the sum of rupees dash dash dash. What is the sum of rupees dash dash dash? Those are the coins that you'll get if you go to the central bank. Is the coins, because the sovereign prints the coins at a 1 rupee note, at a 1 rupee dollar. Okay, that the currency above the $1 is a bank note. So what does it say? The promise. Now tell me, whose promise will you believe? You'll believe the China's promise, or you'll believe America's promise? Whatever answer you get will answer your question.
But effectively, they all are saying that, we are not backing up. It's our word. But we don't know, we have had America's experience for once when they said, okay, we'll take
try buying the yuan, and keeping your money in yuan savings, and try it out if you want to take the risk. Go ahead, because we're a free world. You can do what you want, right?
I think we had excellent, exposition. Sharik, any one last question, if would you like to ask, because we are already.
No, I think it's been an excellent exposition, and I think we've learned a lot from this entire debate and all that. One can go on and on this, because COVID is related to everything. And I think what I like the most about what you mentioned is that we are changing our habits, and the habits are going to change the way our businesses are going to be run. Very often it's the other way around, businesses change and then we change our habits around it. This is going to be impacting the other way around. And obviously we are living in uncertain times. But wonderful. And Mayur, over to you to give your remarks.
So brilliant answers. We really thoroughly enjoyed. We would have loved it to continue. Maybe we might have some other occasion to connect with you. And thanks to both these questions, panelists, means moderators, Sharik and Raman, very good job. Rutvik, may I request you to propose a deserved vote of thanks. I must also thank Padamji again for helping us, and thank you very much, Mohandasji, for this excellent exposition.
Thank you.
Rutvik, over to you.
Thank you very much.
Rutvik? Hello, Rutvik?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was myself on mute. Sorry. So, Mr. Pai, this has been one of the best sessions we have attended till date. We have had multiple sessions, and BCA has been, as other associations have been, on an overdrive on technical sessions. But having an holistic session like this was something which we all needed, and we could not have had anyone better than you. What I've heard is that a good speaker is someone who has a good content, and a better speaker is somebody who mixes the content with real life experience. And the best speaker is somebody who has good content, good experience to share, and gives us direction. And you're not giving just us one direction, you're given us multiple ways and multiple thoughts to act upon. It is on us now as a society to act upon what ideas and what thoughts you have shared with us. We could not have had someone better than you. We are very, very thankful to you.
Thank you.
My thanks also to Raman Bhai and Sharik Bhai for moderating the
session. Thank you, Raman. Thank you, Sharik.
And actually asking thought-provoking questions. And all this would not have been possible without Mr. Padam Kincha's help. And we thank him for arranging this session. Last but not the least, we thank all the participants to maintaining the decorum, which sometimes gets out in these meetings. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. We will touch base with you again to have one more thoughtful session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Greatly enjoyed it. Thank you, folks. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Sharik. Bye.
Bye-bye. We are ending the session now. Thank you.